Hey, students, I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a wonderful fall break and that offered you a little bit of rest and rejuvenation. We are wrapping up our first essay. That seems so crazy because we've worked so hard and scaffolded so much. But I really, as I was going through all the drafts and answering some questions and seeing some common threads, I really wanted to check back in and just point some things out to you. I've met with a couple of you over the last few days, and I think that's been really, really helpful for those of you who've set up a Zoom meeting with me. But I thought creating an Ed puzzle just to recheck a few things would be helpful. So what I first want to talk about is something really, really simple. And that's MLA format. Guys, MLA format should always be Times New Roman, 12-point font. As you can see, everything here is double spaced. You need a creative title that reflects the content of your work. So like, for example, this essay is a lot about how education and teaching changes lives. So that's a good reflective title that mirrors the work that I've done. And then you should have your first and last name. You should have my first and last name. And remember, you need to put a title in front of my name, whether it's Mrs. or instructor, professor, whatever you feel is most appropriate. But make sure that there's a differentiation between your name and my name so that the reader knows. And then you're going to have the course, okay? Writing in the disciplines. And then the date that the assignment is due. So for you guys, that's going to be October 6th, 2023. And then there should be no extra space between your header and your title as you enter into your next essay. And then you should also have your header that's in the top right corner. And this is just going to be your last name and then a page number. So if you can see, I use the insert button, page number, and then I'm going to align it to the right, and it puts it right in there for me. I'm going to highlight all of that and then put it in Times New Roman. And then I'm going to click on my number, and I'm also going to put that in Times New Roman. So as you can see, you have the last name and the page number there, and it'll be reflected in every header. Now, keep in mind, this full header should only be on the first page. It shouldn't be on any of the following pages. So that's just something small, but formatting is a part of your grade. So I just wanted to do some refreshers. That's something you should have covered in English 111, but it can be really easy for us to forget because if you don't write a lot of papers, then those are a lot of tedious rules to keep up with. So let's take a look at this introduction. And guys, remember, the purpose of this essay is a profile essay. So what that means is that you should be focused on a particular subject, and everything that you write should be pointing back to that subject. Now, what we also know is that this is going to be about your career path. So really and truly what you're learning is from the subject, but about your desired career. So let's take a look. As I entered into her small office, I was immediately greeted by the smell of cinnamon candle. It didn't surprise me because Candace is always trying to make others feel welcomed, and a candle makes people instantly feel at home. She swiveled her chair around to greet me. Well, hello, friend. I've been looking forward to this. Her red hair was perfectly tucked behind her ears, and she was sporting her navy and gold apparel for Rhino Wednesday. Everything about Candace screams teacher. While most would have been done with education after 30 years of service, Candace continues to give to this place we call Gaston College. While education is not for the faint of heart, Candace is constantly using her gifts and talents to mentor others. She is a well of advice to new instructors, and she continues to serve as an associate dean because she believes in the mission of what she is doing. She believes that college can change students' lives. So what I want you to see here, guys, profile essays really require a deep level of description. So what you can see is you can actually see Candace when you read this. You can see her red hair tucked behind her ears. You can see what she's wearing. You can see her swiveling her chair. And you can tell just by the premise of what this introduction is about that this is taking place in an office. There's a cinnamon candle. There's a swiveling chair. So what I want you to note is that the reader feels immediately immersed in what this topic is going to be about. But then let's take a look at the thesis. While education is not for the faint of heart, Candace is constantly using her gifts and talents to mentor others. She is a well of advice to new instructors, and she continues to serve as an associate dean because she believes in the mission of what she's doing. She believes that college can change students' lives. So then when we look at the first topic, while Candace is a seasoned instructor, she doesn't pretend that the job hasn't come without its challenge. What I want you to notice is we're still focused on our subject, okay? Right here, we are clearly pointing to Candace. That is the purpose of this essay. However, it points back to the thesis talking about challenges. Look at the beginning of this thesis, while education is not for the faint of heart. So we see a really, really clear picture there of focused on our profile subject, points back to the thesis. Now, let's take a look. What I want you to avoid is this whole ask a question, answer a question, ask a question, answer a question. There's a seamless way to incorporate these ideas without it being so choppy. As I started probing her with questions about the darker side of education, she said, sometimes this job is hard. Students have a lot of needs, and if you're a good teacher, you strive to meet all of them. However, sometimes the time we get with them, especially in a college class, doesn't meet the demands of the needs they have. So we choose to do our best, and we make the resources we have available known, and we do right by them the best way we know how. Guys, what I didn't do here is I didn't say, I asked, what are the challenges of your job? Candace said the challenges of her job are. I looked at a way to transition this in a seamless way that where it almost writes as though it's a story. And then we go on. Candace doesn't just say this because they are nice words. She lives this out in her profession. And then I give a narration about a time that a student didn't have transportation to class. Now, again, remember, this maybe wasn't a part of the interview when I asked her the challenges. Maybe she told me this story 60 minutes into the interview. But what I've done is I've taken a collective look of the information she's given me, and I have figured out what topic does this fit under, and I've utilized it that way. And then when we talk about how do we incorporate those secondary sources, okay, guys, this essay isn't about the research that you're finding. This essay is taking that secondary research, the research you found through the library or through the internet, and supporting your primary research, what you found in your interview. This issue is not new to the profession. In an article titled, and you see how I've integrated the information that's necessary. I didn't just say in some research I found. I didn't just say in an article it said. I'm pointing directly to what article I utilized so that then the reader can go look at the works cited list and find that work. Y'all, if you are not citing this appropriately by using the author's name and a page number if applicable, then you are not citing appropriately. A lot of you were using the year when you were citing. It's not the year, y'all. It's the author's last name and the page number. Any other information you include should not be in the parenthetical citation. That's just extra gravy that you're putting in the sentence leading into it. But it's the last name and the page number that really, really matters. Now, you might be saying, Mrs. Dupree, there's no page numbers. Okay, well, if there's no page numbers, then all you're using is the author's name. And we went over that in an earlier lecture this semester that you may want to take some time and review. You may be saying, Mrs. Dupree, there's no last name. Well, then at that point, the next thing in the works cited citation is the title. So then you would use the title instead. But what I don't want to see is a citation where I cannot direct myself to where that's going to be at. So let's take a look at how this student transitioned this work. This issue is not new to the profession. In an article titled Great Students with Real Problems, Dr. Kelly Ryan, so we see the student used the last name in the sentence, says transportation accounts for 30% of the reasons that students discontinue attending class. Now, I'm going to assume this article had no page numbers, because if it did, then what we would see here would be this. You would see the end of the sentence, the quotations, the page numbers in the parenthetical citation, and a period afterwards. Now, note, there's no period before. Now, what if the name existed, but the name wasn't in the beginning of the sentence? Well, then at that point, I would be required to put the last name and the page number. So I hope that gives you a little bit more insight into how you should be using citations. And then again, after I used this citation, I didn't just throw it in there. I expanded on it. However, Candace doesn't let such a statistic alter her goals. She started teaching asynchronous course so that the students could be in the class via Zoom, and they never missed a single lecture. She is proof that despite the challenges, so I go back to that original topic, that come in serving and working with students, a teacher who is dedicated to their success has the capability to find a way or make one. Now, keep in mind, guys, this is only one body paragraph, okay? The student who's writing this should also have a body paragraph over mentoring other people, being a well of advice to new instructors, serving as an associate dean because they believe in changing students' lives, okay? So I still need a lot of body paragraphs to really support this thesis. But what this student's done is they've done a really good job of supporting the first idea. And that's that there are challenges, right? So what I want you to know, look, this is already a page and a half, okay? And that's just one little piece of that thesis. So your essay should be really, really easy to write if you have a really, really strong thesis statement and you had really good information in your lecture. Now, the other thing that I want to point your attention to is your works cited page. A lot of you did not put this in your rough draft, and that's okay. But I want to ensure that you know how to go about doing that. So I'm going to share my screen. So this is a works cited page, and this should be at the very end of your essay, the very last page. And what I want you to note, guys, you did that annotated bibliography several weeks ago. So this work, if you did it correctly, should be done for you, okay? What you see here is the title Works Cited, and you see the citations built, and they're in alphabetical order, double spaced, okay? So if you take the citations, not the summaries, but just the citations, and you alphabetize them in a works cited list at the end, then when I see those in-text citations, I know where to go look in your works cited page. Keep in mind, you should never have information in your essay that's not cited here. And you shouldn't have information cited here that's not in your essay. This is a guide for me to go into the essay, look and see what you're writing about, and then come back so that I can find it on the internet. And again, that's the last page of your essay. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to me. You can call me, email me. We can set up a time to Zoom. I'm always here to help support you guys and go through your essays. Those of you that I've talked to on the phone, I think you would attest that it's been extremely helpful. And let's finish strong so that we can jump into our next unit next week.